Being that it is Halloween season, Variety just released its list of 100 greatest horror movies of all time. And I was happy to see that Godzilla made the list at number 47. So the franchise cracked the top 50. That is pretty good. Personally, this could be my bias, but I think that Godzilla should be higher, but that's just me. But so I just decided to go through and read the every article underneath the films, and then I got to Godzilla's and I was left very underwhelmed and a bit irritated. And like other Godzilla fans have been honing in on it as well. There are multiple tweets going viral on Twitter drawing attention to the language that was used to describe Godzilla. So we all know that Godzilla has a history, like the franchise as a whole, has a history of Western media, especially minimizing and degrading Godzilla by really focusing in on the fact that there were some camp choices used throughout the franchise over the years, especially the late 60s and 70s. And this article really leans into that and honestly kind of teeters on being moderately disrespectful and diminishing. So I'm gonna go ahead and just read what was said. Quote, he's one of the most spectacular of all movie monsters, and also one of the most grandly preposterous. It's between those two poles that Godzilla lives, occupying an uncanny valley of kitsch awe. Towering over the buildings, elevated trains, and telephone wires, he smashes through as if they were toy models. Actually, now that you mention it, with skin like shag carpeting, plates that line his back like small fur Christmas trees, and eyes so beady they're just this side of puppyish. The radioactive beast who stomped Tokyo is a walking metaphor for the nuclear devastation suffered by Japan during World War II. As such, he's as serious a figment of 20th century horror as the cinema ever gave us, but he's played by a man in a dinosaur suit, and on some level, we always know that we're watching a tacky, ingenious, apocalyptic puppet show. The original kaiju film is still the most compelling, a lavishly somber orgy of destruction. I mean, all thoughts aside, as a writer, I obviously question some of the writing choices that were made in this, but I really find that this kind of perpetuates the minimization of Godzilla that we've seen, historically speaking, from Western media. Now, I would not have been irritated had I not read the other articles prior, because in many of the other articles, the various films noted were spoken with significant degrees of compliment and respect. But then we get to Godzilla, and they use wording like grandly preposterous, kitsch, awe, referring to Godzilla's spines as Christmas trees, skin like shag carpeting. Um, and then of calling it a tacky, ingenious, apocalyptic puppet show. Like, don't get me wrong, as a writer, I understand the significance of hyperbolic, like metaphoric language, but like any sort of tool used in writing, I think there is a place for it, and there is such a thing as overusing it and using it kind of at the expense of something else. And I really feel that that is happening here. Now, I will say that I think that it does complement Godzilla in a variety of different ways, which is nice, but like, how powerful is a compliment when it's wrapped up in a jab, right? Granted, this is media we're talking about. I know a lot of people are upset. Like the media tends to do this very periodically, especially in these list articles. But I think that this speaks to a much more significant conversation, because I feel like this past year, especially, Godzilla has broken through a pop cultural threshold, especially with the fact that Godzilla Minus One was wildly successful. The fact that the film successfully modernized the Godzilla story. I mean, even Shin Godzilla, like we could say that this has been on a trajectory since 2016, right? Because Shin Godzilla was very much a modernized Godzilla story. And I think that Toho has been working very diligently to reaffirm the fact that Godzilla is a serious metaphor, that Godzilla is versatile and adaptable. And yeah, like we love the camp that we've seen in the past. We love, you know, the kitsch awe, as the article says. But ultimately, what really stands out with Godzilla is this gravity that the character exudes. And to me, it like kind of like just weaving in a small blurb of that he's a walking metaphor for the nuclear devastation of by Japan during World War II, wrapped in like this amalgamation of jabs. Like to me, it seems a bit dismissive of that historical gravity and context. That's just me. People are more than welcome to disagree with me. Now, here's what we can do. As Godzilla fans, I think that if we have the wherewithal, it's important to call these things out and engage in conversation, right? Engage in conversation with the media that we encounter, respond to what we see, especially if, the franchise that we do love is being subject to something like this. We also have to accept the fact that, there's always going to be that ebb and flow. Like there is a very deep memory where people do have like this association of Godzilla being camp and kitschy. I mean, in the 90s when I was growing up, like I feel like people really thought that until, Godzilla 1998 came out when Godzilla was kind of projected back into the pop cultural, you know, plane, let's just say. And I feel like it happened a little bit in the 2000s when Godzilla kind of fell, into a hiatus. But this is different. Like we are in a different time where Godzilla has been elevated. I mean, it minus one just won an Oscar for heaven's sake. But going back to my point in making this is why I really wanted to make my show growing up with Godzilla because I think in the stories that we share, we are showing people that Godzilla is more than kitsch awe. Godzilla is more than being grandly preposterous. Godzilla is more than being a somber orgy of destruction or a tacky, ingenious, apocalyptic puppet show. Godzilla is an examination of the human experience, an examination of human flaws. And that's something that's never going away. I feel like Godzilla has withstood the test of time for 70 years. The character is going to continue to do so. And I think that that is something that Godzilla has that so many other franchises lack, that so many other characters just do not have. So long as humans are flawed, so long as we are making these mistakes, so long as we're playing God, manipulating the environment, at the planet's expense, there is always going to be room for these stories. And while there might be some camp that, we can enjoy and, partake in, I don't think that it should always be used as a means to completely disempower the depth and the gravity of a franchise like this. That's just my opinion, though. So everyone has their stances. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. I do that sometimes. Click like. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you have not yet. And thank you so much for watching. Keep sharing your story as a Godzilla fan. Let people know why you love this character, because in sharing that, we can, show people that Godzilla does have a depth that really impacts people individually. Have a good rest of your night. Bye.